Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Michael Ayala. Our Court TV cameras are covering the biggest cases across the nation. At this hour, we're in Utah for the fugitive sex offender trial of Nicholas Rossi. Now, he's accused of raping 2 women in Utah, then escaping to Europe. Authorities found him in Scotland and arrested him in December of 2021. Now, the 2 rape cases are being tried separately. First up is the one happening now in Salt Lake City. Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson joins us now for a debrief.
Michael, good evening. A bizarre case involving a fugitive accused of faking his own death and fleeing the country is now facing a jury on rape charges in Utah. Defendant Nicholas Rossi is accused of sexually assaulting his ex-girlfriend back in 2008. Today, he appeared in a wheelchair wearing a suit and tie with an oxygen mask. Prosecutors say that he faked his own death and fled the country to avoid prosecution. For several years, he fought extradition from Scotland, claiming to be an Irish orphan by the name of Arthur Knight. During a pre-trial hearing, he was asked about a name change.
I was informed by 2 reliable sources that there were 2 credible threats against my life, and that's what made me change my name to Nicholas Brown at that time.
Today, the alleged victim took the stand. Now, per court order, we cannot show her testimony, but she pointed to Rossi, end quote, and said this: "He's a little bit heavier, a little bit older, but aren't we all?" She then described the whirlwind relationship the 2 had, saying he was very charming and seemed very interested in school and politics and music and was just very nice to me. She then goes on, became tearful, and described the alleged incident in question, saying, quote, "He pushed me down on the bed, held me down, and forced me to have sex with him. I was afraid of him and froze. I was a little bit more timid person back then, so it was harder for me to stand up for myself." Now, under cross-examination by Rossi's defense attorney, she acknowledged that she had never experienced any type of physical abuse from Rossi before the argument of the alleged rape. Rossi has pleaded not guilty and faces up to 5 years if convicted. Michael?
All right, Matthew, thank you so much for that report. And folks, we're catching you up on the best of day one, beginning with opening statements from the prosecutor. And he paints a picture of how the couple met before Nicholas Rossi allegedly violently raped her after an argument. Now, we want to make you aware that we are not identifying the victim, so you will hear a drop in audio from time to time.
Good morning, members of the jury. Nicholas Rossi moved away, moved on, and changed his name, but never forgot what he had done. In 2008, he was 24 years old. I'm gonna let the picture catch up with my words. We'll come back to that. I'll keep going. In September 2008, was 24 years old. She was working at a bank, and she loved to dance. Modern dance, ballet, those sorts of dance. Then she got in an accident on a motor scooter that sent her to the ICU, to the intensive care unit. A couple months later, in early November of 2008, she was recovering from her accident. She was ready to start dating again. She met Nicholas Rossi online, and he made a good impression on her. So they decided to meet in person about a week later. Their first in-person meeting went well too, and they started dating. Nick seemed nice, educated, and smart. Very quickly, he started pressuring her to marry him. She wasn't sure, but he was very charming. And within 2 weeks after they met in person, they were engaged. They were at the mall and they stopped by a jewelry store, and he pressured her into buying the 2 of them engagement rings, with her being the one responsible for paying for the rings under the credit application they filled out that day. Once they were engaged, Nick started acting differently. He pressured her into lending him over $1,000. He always wanted to be the center of attention, and he became controlling. He always demanded to be the one to drive, even when they were in her car. And he insisted on being the one to make decisions, and he criticized the things she would wear. He criticized her clothing. A couple weeks after they got engaged, Nick had enough. She told him that she was done with the relationship. She took off her engagement ring and she threw it in her purse. They were at the mall again, and she went to the parking garage to get in her car. Instead of accepting the end of their relationship, he followed her, and when she locked herself in her car, he stood in the way of her getting out of the parking spot. And he yelled at her, and he hit her car with his hand. She was frightened, and she finally gave up, and she let him get in the car. She drove him to his house to drop him off and leave. When they got there, he refused to get out of her car. He threatened her, and he kept yelling at her for nearly an hour. Finally, he calmed down and asked her to go inside to talk. She agreed, but once inside, she told him again that their relationship was not going to work out. He got angry again. He pushed her down on the bed. He got on top of her, and he held her down. He pulled down her pants and underwear, and while she lay there terrified, he put his penis in her vagina. As soon as he was finished, she put her clothes on and she left. She told her parents that Nick had raped her, but they didn't do anything. So she gave up. You'll hear from her that she changed her phone number, but Nicholas kept emailing her. She also filed a small claims lawsuit, like a small claims suit, to get him to pay her back for the ring that he kept, that she had paid for. But he threatened her, and she just ignored his emails after that. And she never spoke to him again, and she moved on with her life. A long time has passed, but never forgot what he did to her during their month-long relationship. We ask you to pay close attention to the details she remembers from their relationship and from the night that she ended their relationship and he reacted in anger. A long time has passed, but there's still evidence from that time that supports her memory of what happened. You'll see the credit application from when they bought their engagement rings. You'll see an online post from Nick that saw at the beginning of their relationship. You'll see the phone records where she changed her number shortly after he sexually assaulted her. And you'll hear that was able to help Detective Coates find the house where it happened, and you'll see pictures of that house. You'll hear from his mother, who remembers Thanksgiving dinner with Nick and also remembers when he told her and his father that Nick had raped her. You'll also hear that she remembers that his father said something insulting when he told them, so nothing happened at that time. You'll hear from Dr. Ken Roach, a clinical mental health counselor, that delayed reporting of sexual assault is common. And you'll hear testimony from him about some of the factors that can contribute to a delayed report. He'll also tell you that people who are sexually abused react in a number of different ways, and that there's no one way that someone who is sexually abused is supposed to act. You'll hear from Eric Seletstua, who was Nick's roommate back in 2008 at the apartment where Nick lived for the first couple of weeks that he and Nick were dating. Eric hasn't seen her since just seeing her in passing in the apartment, but he does vaguely remember Nick introducing to him, and he'll tell you about when Nick got the tattoo that saw on Nick's arm. He also remembers things about Nick that remembers too, like where Nick said he worked. You'll hear from who also briefly dated Nicholas Rossi in 2008, a few months before did. Now, the purposes for which you'll be able to consider testimony are very limited, and the judge will explain those limits to you when she testifies. But while she testifies, we'll ask you to consider the similarities between what she describes and what has testified. Nicholas Rossi later changed his name to Nicholas Oliverdian, and that's the name that you'll hear the attorneys and the judge use for him throughout the trial, Nicholas Oliverdian. You'll hear the other witnesses who knew him as Nicholas Rossi call him Nicholas or Nick Rossi. You'll also hear from Detective Derek Coates. He located Nicholas Oliverdian, who knew as Nicholas Rossi, in Bristol, England in 2021. He wasn't going by Nicholas Rossi or by Nicholas Oliverdian, but he was calling himself Arthur Knight. He followed up on, so Detective Coates followed up on what told him, and he compiled the evidence that she located. You'll hear that when charges were filed in this case in July of 2022, and the defendant was returned to Utah for this case, he denied being Nicholas Rossi and denied being Nicholas Oliverdian. You'll hear from Detective Coates and from Prosecutor Tamara Vasquez that he spoke in a British accent, that he claimed this case had nothing to do with him and insisted that he was Arthur Knight instead of Nicholas Rossi. Finally, in October of 2024, he admitted under oath that he was Nicholas Rossi and Nicholas Alaverdian, as the judge told you in the stipulation, that you won't hear evidence that he is Nicholas Rossi, not Arthur Knight, because he has agreed that, and so that's not an issue in this case today. Please listen carefully to the evidence throughout the trial. At the end of the evidence, the state will ask you to consider the testimony of the witnesses, to consider the circumstances of relationship with Nick, and the things that support her memories of what happened. And we will ask you to find the defendant, Nicholas Alaverdian, guilty of rape. Thank you.